Welcome to Simply Excel. In this video I'm going to talk to you about data validation and drop-down lists. Data validation is a really good way to make sure the data entered into your spreadsheet is consistent. For example, you might want to enforce a maximum length on a text field, ensure that dates are within a certain range, or that numbers fall within a certain range. You can also ensure through the use of lists that data is formatted consistently. To start with, I'm just going to show you where to access the data validation menu. We come up to Data in our ribbon, and then across to our Data Tools area. And it's this little button here with the tick and the stop sign on it. If we hover over that, we see data validation pops up. We click on this and we get the data validation pop-up. This pop-up's got three tabs in it: the Settings tab, the Input message, and the Error alert. I'm just going to demonstrate what each of these do. So in the Settings tab, you can see at the moment the cell I've selected, which is the top cell in my Venue column, allows any value to be entered into it. So we could type anything we like into there and the spreadsheet's not going to stop us. In this drop down, I then have a list of types of validations I can apply. For example, I can apply whole number, decimal, dates, times, text lengths, and custom validations, and also that list is in there as well. So if I just demonstrate the text length validation for now, so we select that one. In this second menu, we've got a list of options. So we can say the length has to be between two values, or exactly equal to a value, or longer than a particular value. For the purposes of this demonstration, I'm going to use the less than option. You see that's changed my boxes below. Earlier I had a minimum, maximum, so I could put a range in. Now I've just said that my data is going to be less than a particular number in length. It's just given me a maximum. So I'm just going to put a maximum of 10 characters in there and then show you what happens if we try and go beyond that. So in this cell, if I edit that cell and just type some extra characters on the end till we go well over 10, press return, I get an error message that says this value doesn't match the data validation restrictions defined for this cell. Now that error is just a generic error, so it tells you something's wrong with your data, but it's not particularly helpful because it doesn't tell you how to fix it. So unless you understand the data validation rule that's been applied, you're not going to know what you need to do. I'm just going to cancel our data entry, which takes us back to the original value, and come back up to this data validation pop-up. And there's two things we can do to make this clearer for people using the spreadsheet. We can put an input message on. So when we turn this on with this tick box here, show input message when cell is selected. So I've said, attention, text must be no longer than 10 characters. We say OK on this, and you'll see that as soon as we select this particular cell, we get a little hint up that says there's some data validation on there, and this is the criteria that we've set. We can also come up to the data validation pop-up, go into the Error Alert tab, and this will allow us to enter a specific error that tells our users a little bit more. Again, we can turn this on and off with the tick box here, and we can pick an icon to go with this error. So we've got a stop at the moment, you can have a warning sign or an information sign. So we're just going to leave that on stop, and again we can type our error message in here. So text must be no longer than 10 characters. We say OK, and if we now go and enter text that's longer than 10 characters, we'll see that we get our custom error message, which is a lot more useful because it tells you what you need to do to fix that data entry. Now, if we have a cell with data validation on and we don't want to be validating the data anymore, again, we can come up to our data validation pop-up and select Clear All. And that's taken that data validation off, so we can now type whatever we like in there. And it really is that easy to apply some simple data validation for your text lengths, your date ranges, and your numeric ranges. Drop-down lists are a little bit more involved than the data validations we've just been through. This is because you have to define a list of acceptable values for your data. There's several ways of doing this. In fact, it can get so involved that I've done a separate video on how to make your drop-down list dynamic, which means that it will update automatically when you add values to it. For now, we're just going to run through a couple of really simple ways of getting lists into your validation. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to add a new column to our table, which we're going to use our validation on. Now we're going to call this column Season, and in here this will allow us to add whether the Olympic Games was a summer or winter Olympics. The first thing we do is we select our entire column that we want to validate, come back up to our data validation menu here, and we select List. The simplest way to do this for a short list is just to type them as a comma separated list straight into the source box. And you'll see that's applied our data validation to our entire column. What we might want to do is, just so that we can change the value of this header, You might just want to clear the validation from that. So to do that, we come up to our data validation menu and just clear all validations. Click OK. So we're no longer validating our header. Every other cell in this column, however, has the data validation applied. For example, we can now start coming down and saying Beijing was the Summer Games, Athens was the Summer Games, Salt Lake City was the Winter Games. If we try and type anything else in this column, we'll get an error message. So I've just cleared that validation from our season column because I'm going to show you very quickly another way to use lists in a really simple way. And this time all we need to do is type our list somewhere in our spreadsheet. Now we can put it on the same sheet, we can put it on a different sheet, it's wherever you want it really. Just be aware that if you do put it next to your table of data, you may have to define a print area so that that list doesn't print out, or it may be at risk of being edited or deleted by other users of the spreadsheet. For this example, we're just going to keep it on the right hand side here. So I'm going to type my list of acceptable values. I'm then going to highlight my column that I want to validate again. Come back up to data validation, again select list, and this time in the source box I'm going to click the little arrow on the right hand side. This allows us to come out and select the range of values that we want to allow in our list. Press return, press OK. Again, we're going to clear the validation from the header. And we can just start picking from this list again. So that's two really easy ways of using lists. So I've just cleared that again to show you how easy it would be to reference that list if it was on another sheet. And that might be an easier way of making sure that your data isn't changed or edited. So I've created a standing data sheet. We type our values in there. And this time when we come to apply our data validation, by selecting list and coming to the arrow by source, we simply click on the other tab, highlight the values, press return. You'll see it's now referencing this other sheet. Say OK. And again, that's applied the validation. We'll clear it from the header. And we can see that that validation is there. One thing you will notice if you do your lists in this way is if you add a new value to the bottom of your list, for example, if we add autumn, I know there aren't any autumn Olympics, but just for this example, you'd think that that might appear in our drop down, but we've still just got our original two values, summer and winter. That's because the area we defined was just these two cells. One way to get around this would be to move our autumn value up between summer and winter. To do this, we move our mouse until we get the black cross with the 4 arrows on it. Press the Shift key, click and hold, and drag it up to between the two values. Now when we come to our Olympic Athletes tab again, that value's appeared on the list, because by inserting into the list we've effectively extended the range of it. That's obviously not an ideal setup, so what you could do is set up a dynamic list. I've done a whole separate video on how to set up a dynamic list because it's a bit more involved, a bit more technical than the level we've gone into in this video. If you are interested, the link's in the description, so please head on over there and that will show you how to create a dynamic list that will automatically update with new values added to it. If you found this video useful, please give it a like and subscribe to my channel for more Excel tips. Thank you for watching.